Hello, I'm Heather Mullen, Development Manager at the Land Conservancy of San Luis Obispo. We've partnered with Slope, San Luis Outdoor Painters for the Environment, to bring you this virtual art show. We really hope you enjoy it. We'll start with a video tour of the Santa Rita Ranch.
Connecting with nature offers incredible peace and solitude. This is where people should be. This is where we can just really connect with something greater than ourselves and see how everything is connected. The Santa Rita Ranch really offers that. The Santa Rita Ranch is a beautiful 1,700-acre property nestled in the Adelaide in the northern part of San Luis Obispo County. The ranch has been in ranching for generations. We envision keeping cattle on the property. It's very important for managing fire risk and also for contributing to our local economy and supporting our local ranchers. It's exciting to have the opportunity to keep the heart of what used to be actually a much larger, tens of thousands of acres family ranch intact and not converted into houses and development. There is a really important large wildlife corridor that runs from Big Sur essentially all the way to really the border with Mexico. And if you envision how wildlife would migrate through the state and frankly how wildlife might adapt to a changing climate, this part of our county and this part of our state is critical. It's a bottleneck for where wildlife need to be able to move freely to survive. That's one of the main drivers for protecting not only this ranch, but all of the ranches that we can in this area. This ranch largely drains to the Salinas River system. Basically feeds a perennial stream that flows to the Salinas River. It's very important from a water supply standpoint and recharging the aquifers in the western Paso and Templeton area. So acquiring this basically upper watershed of Santa Rita Creek goes a long ways towards protecting those water resources, protecting riparian habitat, and steelhead as a threatened species. We recognize that in the northern part of our county, while there's still a lot of what you might call wide open spaces, there's very little that's actually accessible for people to use from a community's perspective. And Santa Rita Ranch has a role to fill there. And our next step will be to plan what level of public access or community use we could have out here in balance with protecting fragile habitat, in balance with the ranching operation. The reason I do this work is for future generations. I grew up running through the hills, riding my horse, and I know how much that meant to me growing up and how much that instilled in me a love for nature and desire to protect it. And I want my kids and other people's kids to have that same experience. And the more properties we can protect close to home, the more of these beautiful landscapes that we make available for the future, that benefit carries forward into all of the generations that come after us. Once land is converted, there's no longer that opportunity. The opportunity goes away.
We hope you enjoyed the video. Now we're going to experience the beauty of Santa Rita Ranch through the eyes of the slope artists. Now we have Dennis Curry with us. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Heather.
And so tell me, how did you like the Santa Rita Ranch?
Oh, it's beautiful. I've lived in this area for about 40 years now, and that corridor off of the Highway 46 West and the Old Creek Road and Santa Rosa Creek Road, that I think is some of the most beautiful country in California.
What was
Oh, I was going to say it was a real privilege to be able to access some locations along there that I haven't had access to before.
What was one of your favorite parts of Santa Rita Ranch? Were you able to find some subject matter out there?
Yes, unfortunately, I was only able to spend one day out there, but I was really struck by a view included the hillside with some outcroppings of oaks and just the tip of the lake and the plowed field, which I kind of thought showed the three main aspects of the ranch. But I stayed in the one location for about 4.5 hours and just really enjoyed watching the lighting change and being out there.
Do you usually work outdoors or do you work in a studio as well?
It's about 50-50. For the longest time, for about 37 years, I was a wildlife artist and a printmaker, which was pretty much studio work. I'd spent about 15 years doing etching and engraving and 18 years as doing lithography and specializing in African wildlife. I was in the safari business for about 12 years, taking groups over to Kenya and Tanzania on wildlife safaris. But since I've moved to this area, I've kind of really been taken by the landscape, and like switching to oils has allowed me to do more work on location, which I really enjoy doing.
How long have you been painting with Slope?
Oh, 7 or 8 years, I guess.
Wow, and what drew you to them?
Well, they're, one reason, like I say, that I took up oil painting was that I wanted to be able to work on location. And so being motivated, one of the problems that I had just as an individual painter is like I'd go out into the field and I'd spend all my time wandering around and not being able to settle on one spot, whereas going out with the group, they can pick a spot and settle down, and so it's been a real motivation to be able to develop that ability to paint on location.
Wow, that sounds really supportive. Like you guys are all, there for each other that way. And
yes, yeah, it's a great group.
what was your medium before oils?
Lithography and etching.
And etching as well. Okay. Wow. Oh, that's beautiful. And so when you did find a spot to sit out on the Santa Rita Ranch, you said you were mostly painting the field there and the lake, and you only had that one day out there. Yeah, we'd love to get you guys out there again for another trip to do some more painting.
Oh, particularly after we've had a little bit of rain, that should change the scene considerably.
Yeah, and we got to get you out there to see some of the wildlife too, the deer and the eagles, and there's a lot of wildlife out there. That would be pretty amazing to see you be able to bring forward your animal skills too.
Well, we did have one bull that showed up to comment on the artwork.
Oh no,
He
it's
didn't
never
seem
good
very
when a bull's
impressed.
commenting. Oh, that's wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dennis. We're going to go ahead and pass it on to Jamie. And for anyone who would like to purchase one of these original works of art for yourself, please click on the link in the description and then come back and see the rest of the content. We've got a lot coming up. Thank you. Back to
Thank
Jamie.
you, Heather.
All right, thank you, Heather. My name's Jamie Kreth, and I'm the Outreach Manager for the Land Conservancy, and I am here with Laurel in her studio in San Luis Obispo, or Arroyo Grande, you said, right?
Yeah.
So we are in Arroyo Grande now, and Laurel, tell me, how long have you been with Slope?
I've been with Slope for 16 years.
And what draws you to plein air painting, which for those who don't know, it's the open air outdoor painting?
Yeah, it's taking your materials and your easel and going outdoors and setting up to watch what you're painting as you're painting it. And I love it because you really interact with the environment. You get to know it. You're there for at least a couple of hours. You are being with the environment, and it's very different than just walking by and taking a picture. So I just love that.
It's probably a lot different than just painting from a photo as well.
It's very different because when I'm on site, something there draws me, and of course that's more important to me. You know, like maybe it's a big hill or something, and maybe that's more important to me than the tree to the left, and the photograph will make the hill smaller and way in the distance. But on my canvas, it's close. It's like it's really there because it's important and it's beautiful, you know, so it's very different.
I noticed that too when I take a photo of like a sunset over the ocean, and I think it's just such an amazing vision. And I look at my screen and it's so far away and it's so tiny, but if you're painting it, you can bring it closer. So
That's right. And you also have, you're right there on site, so you can, you know, if there's something that you can't quite figure out what it is, you can look at it harder. But with the photo, you know, it was a snap for 1 second, and you may or may not be able to see what you're trying to figure out.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you have a couple of paintings that you want to show us from the ranch.
Yes, this is the one that you have on your website. This is the Magical Trail, and that's from the first day I was there. I just loved that scene with all those hillside shadows, and it's dark, and yet behind it it's really light. It's like you're going to the light, you know?
Great. And what medium do you use?
Oh, I'm an oil painter. That's all I do. That's all I've ever done. I just love oils, the thickness of the paint, the ability to create texture. And I also like that it stays wet longer so that I can mix colors on the canvas. This is another one that I did another day.
That's great. And is that near the same area of the ranch?
Yeah, it's kind of closer to the buildings. It's like on the other side of the buildings.
Okay.
I was really, with Santa Rita Ranch, I got really attracted to the hillside shadows.
They're really beautiful, aren't they? It's really cool to see what aspects of the property everyone was drawn to. Some people went to the lake, some people went to the hills, some people went to the trees.
Yeah, and you know, and that's a neat thing about having a group of artists paint one area, because they're always different. Even if we line up and paint the exact same scene, they're all different. And that's the personal part of it, you know, that's the emotional expression of the artist that comes through.
Yeah, that's true. Several of you could paint the same scene and it'll be really different from everyone's perspective.
Yeah.
So Laurel, in 16 years, I'm sure you've been on quite a few Land Conservancy properties.
Yes.
Tell us succinctly, what is your favorite part about the Santa Rita Ranch?
Oh my, it's like I was there 3 times, and the first time I was kind of like, oh, I don't know what to paint. I don't know what to paint. You know, running around, I don't know what to paint. You know? And then I found that scene, so I went plop, I'm painting, you know. And then the next time I went and looked at different spots. And then the third time I felt so much more familiar with it. I kind of knew more where I wanted to go, but it's like the more I went, the more places I had to paint. You know, it's like the second time was like, oh, I want to go check this and this and this. And then the third time it was like, you know, there's so much to paint here, you know. And for me, it was mainly the hills, shadows, yeah, the hills and shadows. I just love that.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you lending your artistic talents to this project and all that you and your group have done to support the Land Conservancy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. We're here now with Daniel Jones in your studio in AG. Is that correct?
Yes, it's back at my house, and it's an old boathouse at one time, and I converted it over to a studio, and fairly small, but it's quite functional actually. So
Yeah, it looks beautiful. And you got to go out to the Santa Rita Ranch to paint as well. How did you like it out there?
oh, it's just beautiful. It was both days I went out. Actually, went out 3 days, and the weather was great. You know, and especially like the morning um, with the coastal influence, the fog coming over the ridges and things, and there's no shortage of scenes at the ranch, that's for sure.
Do you have a piece of art that you could show us?
I have one here. This might have been the second one. No, the first one I did. It's hard to see.
Wow.
This is just the again. It was just the sun hadn't really come out quite yet. Just trying to capture the depth of the sort of a backlit tree on a little hillside looking towards the ocean. So it's a small one. I usually do bigger than this, but yeah, it's done pretty
Wow.
well.
And
yeah,
what was your medium on that piece?
oil.
Is that
Oil.
what you usually use?
Yes, I always paint oil. I painted watercolor when I was younger, and I kind of started out as a palette knife a few years ago, and then and growing up actually, and then now I'm just traditional oil painter.
And do you prefer working outdoors or working within your studio?
I prefer outdoors. Just to gather the information. I'm an outdoor person anyway, I think at heart. So I really do enjoy getting out and like in the case of Santa Rita Ranch, just getting out and just taking off. And there's so many directions to go, and there's so many things to paint out there. There's just, but I like to have a little bit of an adventure too. So it's kind of nice to just go somewhere where you're off by yourself and just quiet and just you and the chipmunks, squirrels, I guess, out there.
Oh, yes, that's so wonderful, Daniel. Thank you so much for joining us for these interviews today. And for any of you who would like to purchase your very own work of art, please click on the link in the descriptions and it can be yours forever. You'll be supporting local artists and the Santa Rita Ranch. Back to you, Jamie.
All right, thanks, Heather. I'm over here in San Luis Obispo with Jim Tyler. Jim, how long have you been a member of Slope?
Since late 2019, so about a year and a half now.
Okay, so fairly new.
Fairly new.
Yeah, so how many properties have you been out on with the group?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably 3 or 4. We've been as far as Carrizo Plains for the weekend, and then a lot of local stuff here, like with the Land Conservancy.
Okay, and Santa Rita Ranch is by far your favorite, right?
Yes, actually it is. Yeah, it's an incredible place.
Great, thanks. And you were able to get out there a couple of times, and I know you probably went the furthest. You got all the way out to the Morro Rock view, and I think you have a oil pastel of that.
Yeah, I do. It's actually called soft pastels, not oil pastels.
Pastel. Thank you.
But yeah, this is the view, and yeah, this was by far my favorite place to paint. You know, taking the Jeep ride up there was a blast just in itself, but once you're up there, just on the top of the mountain, you can see forever. And I was all alone up there and would have been content to just sit on a rock, but since I was able to paint, that was like a big bonus. So yeah, you can just see forever up there.
Yeah.
It was a gorgeous view.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the property as well. So I guess you pointed out there's a difference between oil pastel and soft pastel. For our non-artists out there like me, what's the difference?
Well, soft pastel is a lot like sidewalk chalk, but a lot higher quality and a lot more expensive. So it's kind of dry. Oil pastels have more of an oil binder, so they feel like crayons. So with the soft pastels that I use, I apply them to a sanded paper. So it feels just like sandpaper you'd use in a woodworking project, except it's archival and acid-free. So it's the tooth of the sandpaper that actually grips the soft pastels and allows them to stick.
One thing we were just talking with Laurel Sherry about was the difference between photos and your artwork, and how you can really bring your own colors, your own vision, and your own personality to your artwork. And with that Morro Rock view, sometimes it's really washed out and faded, but you really captured like a great mood with that that drawing or painting. Can you tell me a little bit about your method there?
Yeah, you're exactly right that when you're out looking at colors and values and everything, it's just so much more real and vivid and true to life when you're out there. I have reference photos from the same spot, and when I come back home and look at the photos that I took, it's just nothing like the painting that I ended up with.
Okay.
Cameras just have a tendency to make the shadows dark and the lights washed out and all the colors a little faded. So there's some tricks you can do if you know you're painting from a photo, but it's just nothing like painting from life.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the reasons you like doing the open air painting. What kind of got you into that versus painting portraits or other objects, I guess?
Well, I've mostly been a studio painter my life because I had a computer engineering degree and career. So mostly I just painted at night when I finally had time to myself. But I love being outdoors and I love painting. So it was inevitable that I would start painting outdoors when I finally had a good opportunity to.
Great, thanks. You said you had one other piece from the ranch. Do you want to show it to us?
Sure. Yeah, this is a view from behind the barn when you're looking up the dirt road that kind of winds around to the backside of the lake. And this one, I took some liberties with when I was painting it. It's you'll recognize the scene if you're standing at the same spot, but one of the good things about painting from life is that you can adjust the composition a little bit or the colors. So this whole scene was a little bit wider in real life. So I changed it a little bit because I like the composition better. And there's actually a road right here that I kind of underplayed, but then I really punched that dirt road that's hard to see in real life. It's not, I don't think it's traveled on very much, but I really like how that kind of popped in the sun right underneath the oak trees. So.
That looks similar to one that I've seen from Laurel and one from, it might have been Jan. I feel like that area really spoke to a lot of you, which is really cool because it didn't stand out to me when I first got out there. So it's really great to see from different perspectives what really draws people's eye, and especially with all of you different artists, what draws your eye out there.
That's true. When I painted this, somebody later told me that several others had painted the last time they were out. But one of the cool things about art is that two artists can be standing shoulder to shoulder painting the same scene, and it just turns out totally different because of their style of art or what catches their eye.
Yeah, they are all very different, but you can just tell from the basics that it's the same scene. So I'll have to get Jan to show us her painting as well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I guess my last question is kind of what inspires you to do this work with Slope for the Land Conservancy?
Oh, well, the painting process is fun. I'm going to paint one way or another, but this is just an added bonus, is being able to get access to certain lands that I wouldn't normally have access to, and being able to sell my art to people who really appreciate that kind of land, and then use part of the money to donate to Land Conservancy. So, I feel like not only is it a great opportunity for me, but it's a way to really help get the Santa Rita Ranch up and going.
Great. Thanks so much, Jim. We really appreciate your time and lending your artistic talents.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right, well, we'll send it back over to Heather now.
Thank you, Jamie. And now we've got Jan French with us. Jan, is that your artwork behind you there?
Yes, it is.
Wow, beautiful. And all of that's from the Santa Rita Ranch?
Actually, one of them, I'll block one of them with my head. That's from Sweet Springs. I live in Los Osos, so Sweet Springs offers a lot of really great places to paint from. But the other two are from the Santa Rita Ranch. That was such an experience.
Really? Yeah, tell me about it. How did you like it out there?
It's such a pure experience. It's pure California, Central Coast. To be out there with artists and a free reign and just being able to paint whatever we wanted. It was a really great experience. I think we were all very appreciative.
Yeah, how did you pick what you were going to paint?
That's always a challenge. A lot of people paint scenes. I tend to paint if something will grab me. For example, I don't know if you can see this painting right here. Is I went over to talk to Laurel, who's our president, and she was painting this tree, and I looked at it and it was dancing. The tree was absolutely dancing, and I thought, I can't paint that because Laurel's painting it. But when she said, "Oh, go ahead, we'll paint different things anyway," and sure enough, we did, and it was just the shadows and the movement, the relationships of the different elements. And in that case, I don't know if you can see it in this scene, but the tree was moving. It was the trunk was going up. There was a road coming in underneath. It was great, and the shadows were really good.
Yeah, you can see that even with this distance here, you can see the movement in the tree and even the movement in the shadows too. You really captured that. That's beautiful. What was your medium on those?
That one was watercolor.
Oh, okay, great. And the other one, it looks like you got a bit of the barn.
That one is the series of old like the work buildings that are near the barn.
Oh, okay.
And oh, those places were great. Those were just great. That's an acrylic.
Okay.
The way what grabbed my eye in that case was the relationship of the different buildings to each other. And the light is shining through a window in an otherwise absolutely shadowy building. You can see inside the building, and then all of a sudden in the middle of it, there's this white right there.
Uh-huh.
Just the relationships there, and then the way they related, those structures, the very angular structures, related to the trees that were marching across the top of the hill. It was great.
Wow. Yeah, very well captured. It almost looks like they're both oil. That's really interesting that that's acrylic.
Yes, it's I used to have a sign painting business, and I did not react well to the oils and the thinners. So we'll do acrylic for a while.
Wow, that's interesting how many different variables come into play when choosing a medium. Yeah.
And
Well,
in watercolor, approaching a watercolor is entirely opposite of approaching a scene with acrylic.
and how so?
We have to, with watercolor, you start off with a lot of light colors, and you're using the white of the paper showing through. And when you go over with a brush full of wet paint over something that's already been painted, it will change that. It will lift it. It will blur it. It will, depending on the relationship of the paint. With acrylic, you can hide all your mistakes just fine. So it's and acrylic is a lot brighter. You have watercolor tends to go lighter when it dries. Acrylic tends to go darker and brighter when it dries.
Interesting.
Yes, So I found that a scene, a subject matter will kind of tell you what it wants to be painted in. So if you want to do something quickly, you do it in watercolor. If you have
Okay.
shadows that are about to change and you have to do it now, you do it in watercolor.
Wow, that's really interesting. I had never considered that before. So, have you practiced each medium very deeply to get to that point where you have that relationship and you can decide what's going to be best for each situation?
Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
started. I grew up in a family of artists, and so I started doing artwork when I was about 5. And my father was an oil painter and a watercolor painter, and so I've been around.
Sounds like it. That's great. Well,
That's
thank you
why I
so
was
much, Jan. I think that's about all the time that we have for our
okay. Thank
segment
you very
today.
much for the opportunity. We all enjoyed being out there, and I'm so glad that this is something that will be shared in perpetuity.
Thank you. Yes, so are we.
Nice to
Back to
meet
you,
you.
Jamie.
Thank you, Heather. We are here with Roseanne Seitz in Grover Beach. Hi, Roseanne. How are you doing?
Hi, Jamie. I'm great.
Great. Well,
Good
thanks
to
for
see you.
joining. Oh, yeah, good to see you too. Even though it's virtually.
Yeah.
But it was great to get you guys out on the ranch last fall, and I know you have a couple of great paintings to show us. Do you want to start by telling our viewers what medium you use in your paintings?
I am a watercolor painter primarily. Once I tried it, I just fell in love with it, and it was no contest after that.
Okay, great. And I remember you went out a couple of days and I saw you all over the place. I mean, in a good way. You were looking at
Yes.
different trails and at the lake and at the buildings. What are you looking for when you go out to a property?
Well, my process first is to see as much as I can see and to take photos of things that inspire me. Then I will go back to the places that I choose for that day and pick one. I will sit down and make a sketch, refining my composition, try to decide and put into words what it was that drew me to that place. And then I will start painting. The first day that I was there, I drove in, went through the whole property, and I did not drive across the creek to go up the hill. My car wouldn't have made it, but I did come back then, and I drove behind the barn and took the road up the hill. And just over the hill, there were a couple of water tanks. And looking down onto the grassland behind the oak and where the lake continues, the sun was shining on the grasses back there and coming through the trees that were in front of it. And I was very attracted to that. So I did my sketch on my paper. I set up my stuff. I sit down to paint, and I oftentimes have an umbrella, but in this case, there was a nice oak tree there that I was under. I was right next to this old wooden fence. I had to work a little bit to get my chair stable, put some rocks under it, and then I did the sketch and started painting. I did not finish the painting there. I can show you what I got done so
Sure.
far. These are the 2 water tanks, and you can see here the way the trees came across and the light coming across there and coming across here and coming across here with the hills in the background.
I've heard
So,
several of you talk about looking for areas with interesting light and shadows.
light and shadow, I look for diagonals a lot, and the way the masses might overlap, like you got the tanks, one tank in front of another tank and in front of this and in front of this. That can often give you interesting things. Like when I go do the work on this some more, I'm going to make this darker, which will make the light on this tank really pop out. But the main focus for me is the eye coming in and getting these lights of color and sunlight coming back.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So although it looks like you're still working on it, will that piece be for sale in this show?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
I need to finish that
You want
one.
to show us a couple of your other pieces that you have?
Well, I have another one. The second time I went, I didn't have to drive around and see everything. I knew that one place I wanted to check out was going up that same hill near the water tanks and over. And then the lake kind of comes up to a little meadow marshy area. And the first time I had driven that, I saw a tree that had a lot of yellow leaves on it from that site. I thought that might make a good one, having the water element in the marsh and the yellow tree. However, when I came back the second time, the tree had lost a lot of its leaves. So I decided not to do that. I came back to the barn area because another area that I was enjoying was the hillside near the big barn looking towards the lake. So when I got there, the road kind of comes up here and over the hill and down to the lake. And I was enjoying the shadows that these different trees were casting, and you cannot see them in my painting right now because, again, this one is just started. And there were cows that were around there when I first came on that day, and they were right near the top, so they were silhouetted against the lighter background. And I'm going to add those cows in and finish this with the shadows coming down. Again, I've got different layers. I've got the grasses and then the land that was in the shadow from the oak tree, and then from the crest of the tree, the hillside you go over, and the cows will be up there. So it'll be kind of one thing in front of another, and then putting them in places that will highlight the things I want to highlight, make my focal point.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Cows are always a great addition.
Yes.
We've got some cute ones out there. Roseanne, for anyone who maybe is interested in getting into plein air painting, what's one piece of advice you have for them, or a good piece of advice that you have heard?
To get into plein air painting, I would say talk to someone who has done it and find out what equipment they use. And then don't expect too much your first time is out there, because you are overwhelmed by the massive information that's all around you. And it's hard to pick what you want to paint and to zoom in on it. So be forgiving for yourself. The other thing that you never know that's going to happen is, are you going to have flies buzzing around you, or bees, or the wind is going to be blowing? So another piece of advice would be to get things to secure your painting to your board, if you're a watercolor painter, your board to your painting surface, your paper towels, clip them down, anything that might be knocked over by the wind.
Prepare for the elements, right?
Prepare for the elements.
Yeah.
And the sun. As a watercolor painter, if I can get in a place with shade, that works well, because then I can use my eyes to view my paints and really see them, and then look out at the scene. If I have sun on my palette, then when I mix my paints, and I can't really, there's such a difference between the sun and the shade that my eyes don't adjust well, and I cannot really see the color that's there. So if I can control the sun, that works well.
If you could control the sun. Oh, here's my cat.
Or
okay,
make the sun be my friend.
Yes, yeah, embrace it. Thank you so much, Roseanne, for sharing all of that with us, and for all the work you do with Slope and to support environmental nonprofits throughout the Central Coast. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate us being able to team up with the Land Conservancy. I think it's a win-win situation. We love your mission. It really enhances what we do and gives us a chance to do the things we love, the paint, and lead it, tie it in with the environment.
Yes,
So thanks.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Okay.
So we'll
Bye.
kick it back
Thank
over
you.
to Heather. Bye.
Thank you, Jamie. Now we're with Sandy Heller. Hi, Sandy.
Hi,
Did you get a chance to go out and paint at the Santa Rita Ranch?
I did.
What did you think of it out
ranch is
there?
incredible.
Yeah? What were
Mhm.
some of your favorite parts?
Well, I was lucky enough to get Jeep tour. So I got to go clear to the top and back around. And so I got a great overview. And then another time I was out there, I got to hike up pretty high up the east side too. So that was a lot of fun as well.
Oh, great. And did you find some good subject matter to paint?
Oh yeah, it's not hard.
Do you have any of your paintings with you could show us?
Sure. One of them was from the Jeep tour, and it was a view across the lake. Let's see how this shows. Oh,
Wow.
that light's not going to work. Okay. Yeah. So it's a view looking across the lake, and the ranch house would be somewhere on the left.
Okay.
But probably around that bend though.
Uh-huh.
So this is the far west little leg of the lake.
Lovely. And what medium did you use there?
I'm a pastel artist, so I only work in pastel.
And is it oil pastel?
No. Oil pastel is not considered pastel to pastel competitions, or it's dry pastel. It's almost
Okay.
pure pigment. So
Oh, I had no idea.
yeah, very rich color, and yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting. We've been learning so much about art from these interviews. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
So what are you looking for when you pick a spot to sit and do art?
I'm looking for a nice contrast of darks and lights, something that really jumps out at me. I love, trails are really nice if you can get trails or reflections in the lake, which I had in this, had quite a bit of reflection. I love trees. I'll show you another one. This one,
yeah.
This one was also from a hike on the west end of the ranch. And I'd hiked up, and it was late afternoon, and the sun on the grasses, and then that oak tree just made for a very nice painting. Yeah.
Oh, it's lovely. Yes, excellent work. And do you usually work outdoors?
I do a lot of hiking, so a lot of my painting is in studio, because where I see things I really want to paint is quite a ways from any trail or where I could take a car. And I have kind of cumbersome, by the time you get the easel and all the pastels and umbrella, etc., it's quite a bit to carry. So, but I did one. This one was not too far from the road. And again, it's a view of that west end of the lake.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've just hiked up a little knoll to paint that one.
The shadows on the water in that piece are just spectacular. You captured that very well.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have any advice you would offer to artists who are wanting to learn how to paint outdoors?
I got some really good advice by taking workshops. I had a really good workshop, several days, from Glenna Hartman, who's since deceased, but she was a very well-known pastel artist from Santa Barbara. And so it taught me a lot about indexing the pastels so that you can replace them. Take photos so that you can go back and see, because the light changes so fast. And so it helps to take photos as you're painting. And then other than that, it's just practice, as with any skill.
That's excellent advice. Thank you so much, Sandy. And
You're
now
welcome.
we'll pass it back to Jamie now.
All right, thanks, Heather. I am here with Tracy in Templeton at her house and studio in Templeton. How are you doing, Tracy?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us, and thanks as always for your participation in these shows and all the work you do for local nonprofits and environmental groups. We really appreciate it. So Tracy, how long have you been an artist with Slope?
I've been with Slope 2-3 years at this point.
Okay. And we were just chatting. You retired actually as a clinical researcher with Stanford. How did you get into plein air painting, or was that always a hobby?
I was doing artwork long before I got a career. I started doing artwork. I was lucky enough in my early 20s to find myself in a group of established artists who were in their at least mid-30s and who were already on a path of a lifetime journey as an artist. So it was something I fell into, I was drawn into, I thoroughly enjoyed, and I kind of never questioned. So it was like, if I couldn't be a musician, this is where it's going to be. And I just kept doing it. And I worked inpatient psych as a psychiatric technician until my mid-30s, and went back and forth. When I got too broke, I'd go back to work, and when I got too burnt out, I'd quit and I'd go back to artwork. And
the job's just to pay for the art supplies, right?
Pretty much. Although I enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed the jobs I did. And
party crasher here. That is a really great journey that you've been on. That's really impressive. And it's great to see you with Slope and doing this great work here. I know you have a painting you want to show us. Can you show it to us and tell us a little bit about the medium that you use and what you saw out there at the ranch?
This is an in process, so it's wet. And it is, there we go, I'll just stick it right there. Can you see that good? Yeah?
Yes, I can. It looks great.
So this was, as you come in the road, as you come in and you get through that first flat area with the barn, and then you come around past the road that goes to the house on the lake, you kind of go over a rise and up to your left, which would be actually north. There's a big rock outcropping on top of that hill. And this was from just east of that rock outcropping. I pulled over on the side of the road coming back over the other way. And so I started it there. And at this point, I'm still tweaking the values. I'm still tweaking some of the detail. It's definitely not done. There's part of working on plein air. Some artists manage a plein air painting and just do it entirely in the field. I usually find that there's a number of things I want to work on kind of post-production.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll take pictures of the site and kind of go back and just think about it and let it stew and see what inspires you. Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah. When you go out to a property, because with the Santa Rita Ranch, the first time you went out there, you started painting and you hadn't even been there before. So what are you looking for, and how do you know when it's like, okay, this is it, this is what I want to paint?
When you have limited time on a place, there's a lot of preparation you do. You look around. There are certain things that appeal to certain to you as a painter? I mean, I look for terrain. I like landscape. I like doing landscape because I like terrain. So I generally am drawn to like a hill, a gully, some kind of a slope. I like slope. Probably why I'm in slope. I like slope.
There you go.
But I like that kind of terrain. So the first thing you do is you look around and you see what draws you, what you kind of gravitate towards to. And sometimes you have to drive around or walk around or take some time to really think about it and to really look at what you're seeing. Sometimes it pays to just stop in your tracks and turn around and look the other way, because sometimes you're not seeing it. But it takes a fair amount of preparation. Usually I'll do a thumbnail sketch to see if it's going to work out as a painting,
Sure.
to see if it's worth painting. The times I don't do that are usually the times that I get halfway through and think, uh-oh, I should have.
Yeah, and at the Santa Rita Ranch, there's something new around every corner. So I was really impressed with how where you all would gravitate towards wasn't what I would think I would gravitate towards, but you all came, through with these paintings of these really amazing perspectives that I hadn't seen. So that was really cool to see.
And we really spread out to all corners. I mean,
Yes.
we seldom did. There were a few people who painted near each other, but not really.
Sure.
Yeah.
Except this one tree grove that a few people painted, which I thought was funny. But yeah.
Good shadows. It had really good shadows.
Yes, that's what I heard. The shadow.
Yeah.
We keep hearing that. That's great. Well, we just have another minute or so. Can you tell us what drives you to paint for Slope in particular, and how they support environmental nonprofits in Slope County?
I'm honored to be a member of Slope. Slope is a group that puts artistic skills and what we see and what we envision into helping preserve what we see. I mean, I've noticed in the 13 years I've been on the Central Coast, things that I took for granted when I came here are already different. And so what we're painting is San Luis Obispo County as it is right now, and as it may not be in 10 years. And you're the organization, the Land Conservancy, who's helping make this more what it is now and to keep the parts of it that are the reason we're here.
Yeah, preserving the character of the place. That's definitely what we do, and that's really what you do in your paintings. That's really a great way to look at it. Great. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for your time and for your support of the Land Conservancy with this work. And we're going to send it back over to Heather.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you very much.
All right.
Now we've got Bernie Kurtz with us. She's got some lovely art right there behind her for us to watch while we chat. Bernie, what did you think of Santa Rita Ranch?
It's very open and beautiful. What I liked was to see the animals there, the cows and the birds. And I wish I had been able to capture a cow in my painting, but I think that takes a little more practice, rather than to do it right there, because they don't stand still. But I just thought that was really neat, and the vastness of it, and the, no paved roads really.
Where did you find your inspiration while you were painting out on the ranch?
This painting is actually of the entryway into the ranch, that road into the ranch where there's a gate there. And, but just all over, I was inspired by the shadows that all the trees were making all over. We were lucky to be there a couple times in very bright sunny days, and it was just really, really pretty to see the sparkling light all over the place.
Right. Yeah, it is really incredible out there. How does it compare being out in nature and out in the field doing paintings versus painting in a studio?
Well, painting in the studio, you're normally looking at a picture, so that that photo is compromising what your brain is actually seeing when you're outside. It's in essence making the picture up for you, the photo. So you have to be, when you're in the studio, really careful to instill your own feeling and interpretation, what you're trying to show in the painting. Whereas when you're outside, that all kind of naturally comes because you're there, the sun's shining on you, you're hearing the noises, you're seeing the light, and it just really changes, how you're doing and what you're doing.
What's the medium that you used in this?
I use watercolor.
Watercolor. It looks really amazing. That's fantastic with those shadows. Wow. Is there a message that you're trying to convey with your art?
I just love colors. You will not find any of my paintings that aren't bright or muted. I love the vibrancy of outdoors. I have always loved the feeling of wind on my face. I remember, just being a kid, sitting in my front yard and looking up at the trees and just seeing that sun, come down and feeling the wind on my face. And I feel like that's freedom to me. So I enjoy painting outside too.
That's really beautiful. Thank you. Is there some advice that you might offer an aspiring artist?
Keep practicing and
practicing.
Practicing and practicing. I have another picture that I did for ranch of the barn buildings, and I think I did it over like 5 times. And each time I learned something different that I wanted to put into the next one. So I got that original, this is what I want to do when I was sitting there. And then I came back and I was like, okay, that didn't work. But I just keep going through and, work it out. So lots of practice.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bernie. And for all of you that are watching that haven't heard yet, you can purchase a painting by clicking on the link in the descriptions. Be sure to come back and watch the rest of our video. We've got a lot of great content coming up. Thank you. And back to Jamie.
Thank you, Heather.
We are here with Denise Shriver with Slope. Denise, where are you located right now? Where's your studio?
I live between Atascadero and Templeton.
Okay, so North County, kind of in this area where the Santa Rita Ranch is, so you're familiar with that terrain a little bit. How many times, we had a few paint outs with Slope, how many times were you able to get out to the ranch?
One time.
Okay, and when you got there, I know all the artists were sort of gravitated towards different views, the lake, the trees, the shadows, the hills. What kind of caught your eye about the ranch, or what stood out to you?
But first of all, I wanted to drive around a little bit and get a sense of what the ranch looked like and what it had probably been like as a working ranch back in the day. And what really attracted my attention was the light on the landscape coming through those big oak trees, and the barn and the corrals also.
Sure. We both have our pets hanging out behind us. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the artists say the light, the shadows. And yeah, I was surprised at how many artists were attracted to the corrals, the old buildings. For me, I got there and I'm gravitated towards the lake, but it's interesting to see how everyone is drawn one way or the other. Well, do you have a painting you want to show us that you're going to present at the show, or sell at the show, I should say?
Yes, I do. I have this one. It was the first one that I did while I was there. And it's a work in progress, and it was mostly about capturing the shapes and the light.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So that was towards the entrance of the property.
Yes, it's looking, the barn would be back over here,
Okay.
you know, over to this where you can't see it, but this
And
is actually to the left of the barn.
Okay. And what medium do you use?
Pastel.
Pastel. Okay.
Mhm.
We talked with Jim Tyler about the difference between the oil and the soft pastels. What do you
Yes.
use? Which one do you use?
I use soft pastels.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So how many years have you been involved with Slope? And can you tell our viewers kind of what draws you to that group and their mission?
Just about 20 years, and I love to paint outdoors. It's primarily what I do on location, and I love the land and nature. So I like being able to participate and help to get monies to raise monies for these projects to save the properties.
Yeah, thanks. We really appreciate all the work you guys do with us. Great. Well, for anybody who's watching who, you know, we have Land Conservancy supporters watching and art enthusiasts watching. For anyone who might be new to the concept of plein air painting, do you have any tips for people to get started or words of wisdom that you've heard throughout the years?
I would say go out with the idea of observing nature and get a feel for what's out there and paint what really attracts you, not something that you think would be a popular motif. It has to be something that stirs your soul, and to pack lightly if you can, and go out and do that often. It's really wonderful to paint from life.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Denise. We really appreciate your time and your pets. We're all
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
No, same here. We've got all the little furry critters running around.
It's my alarm system.
Cool. Well, great. Thank you. We really appreciate it, and we can't wait to see your artwork on the website, and we'll send our viewers there shortly. So we'll send it back over to Heather now.
Thank you, Jamie. Now we've got Libby Tolley with us. Libby, are you in your studio right now?
I am. Yes.
It's a lovely space. Do you prefer working in your studio or outdoors?
I'm a true believer in painting from life, so I love being outdoors. But the studio lets me make these large paintings, and I can bring in my smaller works and enlarge on them.
I see.
I'm really fortunate to have this studio, so to have this much space out here on the ranch is pretty nice.
And did you get to go paint outdoors at the Santa Rita Ranch?
I did. I was there only one day, but I'm very familiar with it. So that's great. And we live on the same terrain. We're on the other side of the hill. So my painting that I showed you a moment ago actually is the backside of this ranch, which I don't get to see very often from afar. So it was very nice.
Wow, go ahead and hold that painting up now for everyone to see. Yeah, that is just gorgeous. And what medium is this?
It's oil, and it's on a linen panel. And I work on panels outdoors.
Do you normally work with oil?
Yes. I used to work in watercolor exclusively. And then I started painting outdoors, and I found that on some of my trips, my water was gone before I had a chance to paint with watercolor. And that was actually part of this group Slope when we were starting it. We were walking to the top of the Santa Ranch above Ragged Point. And by the time we get up to the top, that's when I realized I had to switch mediums, because my friends that were painting in oil weren't drinking their solvents. They had their drinking water and they had their painting solvents. So the next day or two after being up there, I was painting oils on location, just like that, you know. And it's a funny story, but it really was the push I needed. So that's where I started with being a painter in Slope. In '93, I started painting in oils on location.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, well.
And how did you choose your, I'm sorry, how do you choose your subject while you're out painting outdoors?
I'd like to say that it chooses me, and it calls. It's something that just says, paint me today. It could be the light, it could be the subject matter, but whatever it is, I usually do some drawings, I do some walking around, but sometimes I'll just be driving and it's just stop now. This is the moment. You got to get out of the car, put up your easel and paint. So I think I'm pre-planning. Sometimes I say, okay, I've been out here drawing. I know what time the light's going to be right. Everything's going to be perfect. But of course, the weather's not like I wanted that day. And so I end up painting somewhere else anyway. So was that a roundabout answer?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, that was really beautiful. You spoke to, you know, the presencing that creating brings into your life. I think that's really beautiful.
Yes, well, good. There are times that I'm working jobs, you know, and I have to be a certain place, like I'm doing commissions or the Santa Rita Ranch. And so then I did the best I could with my time place to find a part of the area that spoke to me. And in the morning, I painted somewhere else on the ranch. And what spoke to me was the water, because it was pretty dry. And we all know what, you know, we'd gone through the fire out here earlier this summer in August, and how much it meant to see that much water on the ranch. It really just felt good. And so I started painting there in the morning, but what really spoke to me was the barn and the homes, the old homestead against the afternoon light. So I ended up putting my energies in that painting.
Wow, yeah, and you captured it beautifully. Thank you so much, Libby, and I look forward to seeing more of your works in the future.
Thank you.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the interviews. You can purchase your own original work of art by clicking on the link in the description box. Thank you for supporting local artists and the Land Conservancy of San Luis Obispo.